Rite of Passage, the podcast with Giabra Martin.
I'm going to go ahead and hit it. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, wherever and whenever you're listening to this. We are here today with author Nico. Okay, I'm sorry. I was going to ask you. I'm all over the place. How do you say your last name?
Harlakenden.
Harlakenden. That's actually beautiful.
Thanks so
Yeah,
much. Yeah.
I
It's a
couldn't
difficult one
probably.
though. It's in a lot of
No,
syllables.
it's intimidating in writing, but it's a beautiful name. And it actually, I mean, it's not like that complicated. I just might be dyslexic or going cross-eyed or need more coffee or something.
Yeah.
So how are you, Nico?
I am so well. I think like every creator at this point in time, maybe a little tired, but we're going to ignore that part. And
Yes.
yeah, how are you doing?
I am very well. So we had some like tornadoes here. So I was like, God, I got the tornado warning at like 3 in the morning, and I went on YouTube and I'm like sitting there on the couch watching them, and it was like the right thing to do. But now I'm a little bit like today is a little slower than other days.
Yeah.
But we're getting there. We're getting there.
Glad you're
So,
safe. Yeah.
yes. No, it was a little dicey for a minute, but I don't know. Like a lot of people had wicked storms. So we, in Nashville, we were, just one city out of like a bunch. Indianapolis, Louisville, Memphis, everybody got hit. So can't complain. We're all good. We're all safe here. Where are you based out of?
Yeah. So I'm based out of the Midwest now. I'm in Michigan, but I'm from New England. I moved here
Okay.
probably 2 or so years ago. Not too far. We actually had, what was it, 80-mile-per-hour winds just the other evening. It was quite scary.
Yeah, a little bit. Where about in Michigan?
Right in between, not to dox myself, but between, let's say,
Right.
Detroit and Chicago.
Okay, because I grew up
Really?
in the Chicago area, so like
Oh,
Michigan
cool.
is a place. Yeah, when people in Illinois need a vacation, but they only have like a 3-day weekend, it's either Wisconsin or Michigan, almost inevitably. But Michigan is a beautiful, beautiful state.
I love it. Yeah, lots of greenery. It's great.
Yeah, I'm hoping they'll become the new like Napa Valley, and they'll have a because they're working on this whole wine culture thing, and they got there, and I'm like, let's take that to the next level because I know it's fun
Absolutely.
visiting Michigan. Yeah, yeah. Have you been up to the UP yet?
Not yet. It is on the bucket list. That is gorgeous. It looks just like, I don't know if you've been out to Maine, but like
Oh,
Acadia and down east. It's
oh.
beautiful.
Maine is one that's like high up on my list.
Yeah.
Like just beautiful, beautiful place that you got to see. And I mean, there's so much to explore just in the United States, and Maine it is way up there for me. Yeah. Yeah. So let's get into your book. I have had the Snake Witch Planner pulled up, and I have a lot of questions, but I might just like if you want to give me a quick overview and for anyone listening.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Snake, I have a couple of books up. I'm not really here to promote too many of them. There is an upcoming project, which
Okay.
is pretty exciting. I would love to unveil and divulge a little to you, probably. But Snake Witch
Sure.
Planner itself was actually what got me into print on demand as it is and exists kind of today. And this was during the
Mm,
pandemic.
mm.
So, I know a lot of us had a lot of extra time on our hands. We got a little creative maybe with some of that time
Yeah.
that we had.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I just combined a lot of my passions, which were long-term like art and astrology and
Mm.
including others and organizing
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and just putting it together in a planner all in one. It was really hard at the time. There are more choices now, but it was hard at the time to kind of find a solution like that. And
Mm.
it was really exciting. It was kind of cool.
Well, I love it. Okay, so because I want to dig into that specifically for my own selfish reasons. I'm
Sure.
working on Greek mythology, and there's this big emphasis on the snake as specifically the feathered serpent. And we'll get into that coming up here because I do want to pick your brain a little bit. But
Please. Yeah.
yeah, if you're not here to promote, so I mean, you're an author and a publisher.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about your publishing. Like, yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am owner, founder of Newton Press, and that was founded back in 2020 because of that little planner. But
Mm.
it's so funny to say things like that and to have this actually become a reality because of it. But yeah,
Mm.
because of that Snake Witch planner, which is kind of esoteric, kind of creepy, kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, it was a natural progression to start using kind of what I know from my 9 to 5, my work, my corporate job, which is systems thinking and making
Mm.
things efficient for people and also helping to lift other people up in that creative endeavor. Um, prior to 2020, what I used to do is I printed a lot of zines. So 2016, 17, 18, I ran a quarterly broadsheet size, so like newspaper style, fake newspaper ARG experience called The Curious
Okay.
Post. And
Okay.
every year we would have a scavenger hunt once a year for Halloween, and you would go through solving all these riddles and clues and through
Oh,
an entire city, and people loved it. I had such a blast, and
wow.
so I wanted to start bringing that to the publishing world in a lot of different projects. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, and we actually have an anthology going to be released at the end of this year in September.
Okay, so when you say we, you've got a couple authors you're working with, or like you got a local team
Yeah.
or something?
Yeah, absolutely. I am beaming because I actually have been connecting with probably 20 or so of some of the coolest people I've met
Yeah.
in my adulthood. I think
Right.
so many of us often are kind of miffed at why connections and meaningful connections are kind of more difficult to make in your adulthood. And I think the
Right.
act of creation and stuff like that are really helpful to make those kind of friendships happen.
I think so. I mean, at least it's obvious like you what you have in common.
Yeah.
Because part of it is like when you're meeting people, it's like, I don't know, asking the right questions to figure out like what we do
Yeah.
have in common kind of thing. And it's just tough in your adult life. I mean, like, you get this like these moments in passing at the grocery store, the coffee shop, and you have no idea like, do we have anything in common? Is this a tree worth barking up? But if there's a common creative dream, you're like, hey, we got this one big thread, for sure holding us together. We can start with that and build upon that.
Totally. Totally agree.
Yeah. But it is hard to make new old friends. That is a challenge. And I feel like I don't know, we're so isolated and like COVID kind of did that. And then just as authors, we're like naturally kind of, we got our little workshop and it's very, very solo endeavor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about, okay, so you said, I believe you said August just now. Your upcoming book, like the next
Yeah.
one coming.
Upcoming anthology. It's called Forbidden Fruit, and we're actually working with an illustrator from Italy. She enabled me to license one of her pieces. It's really beautiful. I can't wait to have a mock-up to show people. We should be unveiling that soon.
Nice. So more so than your own writing, I mean, the publishing is like that's where the passion currently is. It's like at the intersection of, your skill set from your day job, your creativity. You're like, hey, this is where they meet, and like we're going all in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of just the time and place I'm at. I do have a manuscript I'm working on, but
Yeah.
who's got the time? Like you said, it's so hard to find the time to write.
Yeah, I'm struggling. It's
Yeah.
always torn. We were talking before the show. Always torn between reading and writing, and like at any given moment, I'm like, oh, or I should be like spending time with my son and wife, and it was like, or I should be like working and paying the bills, like, or I should maybe be sleeping somewhere in there. So
If you have time. Yeah.
if you got time, yeah. So you kind of do an imperfect job at everything, and you just keep pushing through, and eventually, a year later, you have things to show for it.
Yeah.
Um, so in terms of the authors you're working with, as a publisher, like what are the primary services that you offer?
Yeah, so this is really just starting to branch out to help other people, but I definitely do editing. I've been doing editing for years, even before Newton Press became a thing.
Mhm.
Um, I really like to help folks with developmental editing. I can do the line edits and the copy edits as well, but if
Mhm.
folks need like an early voice that is maybe coaching, empathetic, welcoming, I like to work with people. I like to approach a project, whatever it is, whether it's like a short story or a full-length manuscript or something like that. I like to
Yeah.
approach it from the perspective of potential audience member or two. Like, who is the reader that's going to be reading this and what will they be thinking? So I think a little bit of psychology comes into that, which, if I recall reading any of some of your stuff, I think you like to do that too.
I do. Well, in terms of like the reader, like if we're talking marketing, that's excuse me, like one of the biggest things I've gotten wrong. So it's very, very hard to determine like, okay, what category does your book actually exist in, and then who should read it, who would enjoy it most. Answering that question is really the key. Not even, I mean, for everything, right? Like if you can write a great book, send it to the wrong audience, get a bad review, and then like, turn off potential readers in the future. You know what I mean? It's like so having that second set of eyes, and I've honestly never had that. And it's a big mistake. Like no one has ever read any of my books until they're finished and they're out. Like I've
Gotcha.
never done ARC readers, beta readers, and I've just been shooting in the dark. And I've kind of gotten lucky because like there's a chance you can totally miss the mark. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
for sure. But
yeah.
I think
So that's
that's
something you
normal.
provide. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something you provide is like, hey, along the way, like, like bounce the ideas off of me as you're working through them and maybe even because like readers or authors get stuck too. You're
Yeah.
like I'm working on a thing and I don't totally understand it and I don't know how to work through it. And, if you're on your own, it might take a month for you to have your epiphany. But I mean, if you have someone, who can look at it from the outside, I mean, they might get you over that like within a couple days, right? Like, hey, let me think about the same problem. We'll both think about it. We'll hash it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sometimes writers just have too much intimacy with their own piece, right? Like you know it
Right.
backward and forward. It's hard to separate and kind of look at it from a 20,000 foot view.
Right.
Also, like, I don't know if you do a lot of this. I don't. I'm probably just too nervous or something like that. But a lot of writers submit work to places. It could be
Mm,
for anthologies, it could be for lit mags, it could be that sort of thing, or they could be ready to query like a trad publisher or something like that.
mm,
And it could be such an excellent premise, and it could just be maybe like a pacing issue, like the tiniest pacing issue at the beginning,
right.
front end of a book could make all of the difference and really get you some full length requests. So I think developmental editing, while it's kind of like a hidden part of like the real deal publishing world,
Yeah.
can be really helpful.
Yeah. I've never done really anything like that. I've always been like, okay, I'm gonna just try to write something worth reading, and then I'm gonna figure out everything else after.
Yep.
And there was a lot of mistakes made. You know what I mean? Like I went with some of those like vanity publishers,
Oh
and they're
yeah.
like, oh, my first two books I went that way, and they're like, listen, we love your book. We really love your book. We're gonna pay half, you're gonna pay half. We just need a small investment of $4,000.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, and there's so many like kind of fake services. I mean,
Yeah.
authors are vulnerable because we're dreamers. Like you've got this dream, you're just so committed. You're like, I wrote this book and now I'm going to put it out there and people are going to read it. And there's a lot of people like ready to just kind of exploit your enthusiasm.
Yes.
So like having the right team is huge. So like what are the, the biggest things that you offer to these authors you're working with?
Yeah, I think being that voice, being consultative is super important. I think we learn that. Anyone successful in business learns that. It can't be your way or the highway, but people are coming to you for a reason. So you can provide that, you can have clear communication. And I think making sure that you're putting someone else's interests ahead of your own and real
Mm.
with them if you don't think that it's a wise business decision while still preserving, that relationship in some way, even if a writer doesn't go with me or my services.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's so important. Like just being really real.
You're talking like before you put your name on it and like sign, let's say sign with a an author, you're like, yeah, I don't know if this specific idea is going to
Yeah.
work. Like, maybe if you made these changes, I'd be on board to like, because if I'm going to put my name on it too, that's also my reputation. And
Yeah. Legal
yeah,
risk as well in some
right,
cases.
right. So are we talking more like on controversial works or like,
Oh,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
it could be. It could be.
right.
Or it could be letting them know how saturated the market is for certain ideas, being real with
Mm,
them that way. So if there is some risk that needs to be taken on by a business, even if it is an LLC, which we know traditionally expose us to less risk than other business entities,
right.
um, but even if it is an LLC, if we're taking on some of the business risk, we have to be real and there has to be a case for it. And sometimes that is a harsh truth, but I
Yeah,
mean, with this upcoming anthology, it's forbidden fruit. The whole theme is speculative fiction.
right.
So horror, dark fantasy, sci-fi, and these can be some really gritty tales. And so I
Mm,
just wanted to let authors submitting to this collection kind of run with it. So there
mm,
were definitely some line steppers in the submissions that were coming my way.
right,
Um,
right.
but then there's always the kernel of like the great idea or two inside each of them. And I think something that I liked to do because I had the time at this point. I wasn't doing like a deployment with my 9 to 5, or I
Mm,
wasn't, in the throes of trying to put together this anthology.
yeah.
Um, what I like to do is to offer to meet with the folks that maybe we didn't get to go with. So if I had to turn someone down and make that tough decision, meeting
Hmm.
face to face and letting them know why, letting them ask their questions, if time allows, that can be like a really important bridge builder.
Right. And putting in the work for like, hey, in the future, maybe there
Yeah.
is a way we can work together. Because most times with these people, like you're lucky to hear back anything at all.
Yeah.
Like even a no, like most times you like submit it and you don't even know if it was received. And then, I mean,
Exactly.
sometimes it can be a year and a half later, and they send you back a rejection. And you're like, I published that book a year ago. Like,
Yeah.
what are we talking about here? So that feedback is huge. And even just to put authors on a long-term path, like for authors, you could take a little bit of pain today, which is like a little tough love, a little criticism, but it can put you on a path to be extraordinary in the future. You know what I mean? If
Exactly.
someone's willing to give you the feedback now, yeah, that sounds valuable. So how did you get connected with an illustrator in Italy?
So interestingly enough, so when I was starting with this zine, back before there was a publisher at all, before there was an LLC,
Yeah.
I was a huge fan of this illustrator's work on, it was probably Instagram, but I came across her tarot decks. So
Okay.
lots of creepy, spooky stuff.
Right.
Um, and she's definitely award-winning. I happened to reach out to her with a pitch. She was absolutely a stretch pitch. Like I knew like, hey, this is like hitting above my weight class kind of for
Right.
this.
No, that's wonderful. Keep going, keep going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I had feelers out and kind of pitches out to other artists that were within our budget too, because a lot, to be fair, a lot of the budget for this book is going into the cover because we know it's so important. We
Yeah,
talk
people
about it
do
all the
judge it.
time. Yeah.
Covers
Um,
essential.
Yep. And so I reached out and luckily I was very honest with her. I let her know what it meant to me, her work. I
Mhm.
let her know what we were working on and why. I linked her to my socials and things like that so she could vet, make sure it was a match for her brand, so it wasn't anything that would be offensive to her.
Right.
And yeah, just let her know what we were working with. And maybe on a wish and a prayer, she would hit me back.
Right. 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 And yeah, she came through and
Yeah.
the project. Yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't stop smiling.
Oh, I can imagine. So that's what a dream. There's a honestly, and I know that you're on like kind of an esoteric thing, and I'm a similar vibe. I feel like our limits are entirely based on what we believe for ourselves.
Mhm.
So like, there's this thing. There's a guy named Tim Ferriss. I think it's Tim Ferriss. He wrote this 4 Hour Work Week, and
Yeah.
I resisted reading it because I'm like the premise made me angry. Like 4 hour. I'm like a workaholic, so the idea that like it only takes 4 hours a week, I'm like, this is ridiculous. But he's got a good point. He's got a thing that's like, okay, let's say you're trying to get a grant or something. There's like $100,000 grant and $1 million grant. Everyone thinks the $1 million grant is like punching above their weight. So it's like you might have 100 people trying to get the $100,000 grant, and there's only 10 people going for the million.
Yeah.
Or like, hey, you might be able to get Stephen King on the phone because people think it's so impossible that very few people try. Like you might think, oh, there's no way, but he actually might not get that many phone calls because like no one even has the audacity to think it's possible.
Yes. Be
So I just
audacious.
yes, be audacious, punch above your weight class constantly. And you know what? You might go up a weight class in the process.
That's right.
Yeah.
Your dreams will totally pull you along.
I love that. And don't put yourself in a little box. Like at the end of the day, even you like whether it's Stephen King, an Italian illustrator, whoever it is, the president of the United States, no one is 10 feet tall.
That's right.
You know what I mean? They may be on a stage, they may look like inaccessible, huge, towering figures of some kind, but like they're just people. It's
Yep.
all just people, this whole planet. So there's nothing that is beyond your reach if
That's right.
you're willing to open up your mind to the possibility. So let me ask you. So you're the first like publisher I've interviewed. So I
Oh
actually
no.
no, it's well, I mean a lot of indie authors are kind of technically publishers. Like I'm
Yeah.
technically G. Edward Martin Books, but like
Yes.
I've only published my own stuff. So like, um there's an interesting okay, so Uber lets the drivers rate the clients,
Yes. Yep.
which is very interesting. I love that, like flip it on its head that like, hey, you may be a customer, but you're not always right. And like you get a score too. Airbnb, all this stuff. Do you have a preferred sort of author, like preferred genres, preferred vibe, mentality? Like for someone approaching you, like who is your ideal, even if it's coachability, anything you're vibing with in that question?
Yeah, coachability is important, but I think with enough care,
Mm,
someone who is like a savvy mentor can help someone feel more comfortable with feedback.
mm,
I used to be so sensitive. I'm sure that's not surprising, but I used to be so sensitive when I was younger. I was, drawing all the time and writing, that
yeah.
artistic type that we all probably started out as.
Right.
Um, and I think like with time and with like understanding and having the value for why feedback is so important and what it can help you achieve,
Yeah.
I think it helped me so much. Like I would never even be here talking to you if
Right.
you know what I mean, if I was still that really sensitive person. So there were a lot of really great coaches and mentors that helped me along the way, and I think passing that along to others is helpful too. But I think the most important thing that I'm looking for right now is probably just to embrace things that we don't read about very often, right? Like I created Newton Press because I was tired of waiting for gatekeepers
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to say yes to the kind of stories that I want to read, which is weird, maybe a little occult, maybe a little esoteric, a little woo-woo.
Right.
Or it could just be someone else's voice, someone who hasn't had the opportunity or had someone take the chance on them. Like I don't like necessarily putting my all behind things that exist in slightly different flavors already, if that makes sense. So I like
Yeah.
strange, soulful stuff.
Well, and it's interesting, and it's a tricky balance. And I appreciate that you're an artist and entrepreneur and business person. That's a thing that's missing a lot from the indie author space. So, like when it comes to, let's say, traditional publishers, it's just like Nike, having a sponsorship with Manny Pacquiao, and then he's like, "Oh, I hate the gays." He gets drunk, and then Nike's like, "Hey, we just make shoes. It's got nothing to do with us." Publishers are in a similar position where it's
Yeah,
like, they're putting their name on an author, and like if that isn't received well, if that like pushes the boundary further than the boundary would like to be pushed, that's a bad reflection on that. So like their incentive, and they also don't want to spend money on something they don't know if it's going to work. So like they have basically every incentive to find the most marketable commercial like books that will have a minimal impact on a ton of people versus books that may have a profound impact on a smaller group or potentially get them in trouble. And it's
totally.
a very interesting balance, right?
Yep.
Yeah. But I agree with you. Like I feel like great literature pushes boundaries and a lot of it isn't expected to work. Like I talk about J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter a lot. So much rejection for that book because they're like, what, little kids are going to read this biblical proportion, epic, giant novel, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then suddenly, like third grade, everyone in my classroom had a copy of this book. I was like, what is this crazy book all of my classmates are reading? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah. You won't know what's going to work until it does.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, while we're talking about that, do you want to talk about the esoteric weird stuff? You were
Let's
talking
do
about
it.
the feathered serpent. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, so badly. That's honestly the only thing I've been thinking about for like a week. Oh, okay. So firstly, I'm in the middle of I'm calling it a Greek mythology retelling because it does not fit in a box. I don't know what else to call it.
Okay.
But okay, so here's the thing with mythology. So Greek mythology, you never get to hear why things are happening, right? Because for the Greeks to write that, they'd be like speaking on behalf of the gods. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, Zeus disguised himself as a swan and impregnated three ladies, and they don't say why he did a certain thing. It's more just like these are the facts. This is what happened.
Hmm.
So I'm like, okay, we're in a unique position with hindsight where it isn't our culture anymore, where we have all these cultures around the world. We're like, okay, you can merge different mythologies, you can merge different cultural ideas, different religions, you can explain the psychology behind certain maneuvers. So I don't want to talk about the book too much because, I don't know who's listening and they might be like, wow, that's a great idea. And I might write faster than this guy.
Totally.
Yeah.
Especially with how little time you have.
Well, so, okay, the story of Prometheus.
Love it. Already love it.
Okay, so and I had to learn a lot recently. Like I wrote a whole novelette about this a couple years ago, put it inside of a larger literary fiction.
Cool.
And I'm like, you know what? That story, I didn't go all the way with it. There's more we can do. There's further we can push it. So I've been digging into Greek mythology, like thinking about this problem. And his story is like, okay, he was a Titan who chose to fight with the Olympian Greek gods like Zeus and them. So he kind of betrayed his own, kin to join with Zeus and them. But then afterward, he's given the responsibility to build humanity. And he forms this out of the mud. And what's interesting is like in the Mayan culture, this Quetzalcoatl feathered serpent character, their word for human beings is animated earth, that like we're animated mud that they put a soul into. And I'm like, what the hell? Why do these cultures that never met each other, except maybe through Atlantis on some woo stuff?
Let's get weird. Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, there is this weird feathered serpent idea that is across the world. Like in Christianity, it's like the snake and the dove. Like Moses is like, okay, drop your staff. It turns into a snake. Now raise it up in front of the people. And then Jesus is like, raise me up like Moses rose up the serpent. And then in India, they have the Kundalini, which is like the feathered, the snake chasing after the bird. And when they meet, you find enlightenment. Thoth / Hermes Trismegistus had the caduceus, which is a feathered serpent. And I'm like, what the hell is this feathered serpent that you see all over the world in all these unrelated cultures? But like, I've got two possibilities. One is that they come from a much older culture, perhaps like Atlantis or something, or that there is something fundamentally true about this symbol that like every culture, the greatest thinkers and teachers found that like this is the best way to describe this very fundamental idea about a human being is a soul having a bodily experience that's kind of forgotten that it's a soul, and something like that. I'm a better writer than sometimes, like right now I'm raw thoughts. This paper is good for me. I get it on paper and I can.
I love it. So I don't know if you are familiar with the terminology synchronicity, but I love it. Yeah, one of my
Carl
favorite
Jung
things.
is my guy. I love
Carl Jung. Oh my God.
Yes.
I probably write too much about him and integrate him too much in my personal Substack, which is just all about my weird thoughts. He's the coolest. So I have a giant Quetzal feathered serpent tattoo.
Nice.
Huge back piece. Huge back piece. Yes, I do. And in that Snake Witch planner that started this whole thing and basically funded like the startup of Newtown Press and getting this anthology together and paying the artists and paying the authors is actually talks about all of those things. And my close friends made fun of me because at the beginning of the planner, there's actually like a history of, and there's like footnotes. One friend was like, it's a planner with footnotes. What isn't there to love? Or it's so original.
I'm into that though.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm finding in this story, like I've had this feathered serpent thing on my mind. Like I don't have any tattoos about it, but it's been on my mind since I first heard about it. And I'm like, what the hell is that? What does it mean? And it's like everywhere you look. So here's another thing that was so fascinating about the Greek mythology. Every religion has like two sets, and like you probably know this as kind of esoteric philosopher and inquisitor. There's like a public version and a private version, and the Greeks were amazing because they like would tell the same story, and the masses be like, oh, that's why we have seasons, and then like the elect few in the caves of Eleusis would be like, oh, we see exactly what that's about.
Yes.
Dude.
We've
We've
got to schedule like a different time to talk because like let me just tantalize you.
Please.
I infiltrated an alleged internet cult, and it had all to do with like Greek and Eleusis like type stuff, and it would be totally interesting. Yeah, even if you just want me to like shoot you an email sometime, it would probably give you lots of stuff to look up.
They're probably all just reading Manly P. Hall, and they're yeah.
Love it.
I love love Manly P. Hall. God, so I'm working on so the story of Prometheus. And I might need to hold on to the show until I got my ARC readers because I'm like, once the book's out there, it's protected. But the story is so weird because they're like, okay, Prometheus, trying to get back. Like Zeus was like, oh, we like these people that you created, Prometheus, but they're living too long and they're a little too much like us. So like, they're gonna have to worship us, and they got to die like 100 years or so or less. And then Prometheus, to get back at Zeus, plays a trick on him and then also sneaks into the workshop of Hephaestus and steals fire and gives it to humanity so they can cook food. And I always thought that fire was just such a loosely disguised metaphor for like divine light, almost like a
Mm-hmm.
Holy Spirit type thing. That like, hey, there's something within you that is like, like it's not the Greeks who are coming down to earth in disguise as gods. It's like you human beings are the thing that's in disguise and don't know what you are. And that divine light is like that little spark of like, oh, we're star people having a bodily experience. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's what he was punished for. Because it was like, oh, you taught them how to cook food. We're going to chain you to a rock for eternity.
Yep.
And like, like seems a little excessive for teaching someone how to use a stove.
Absolutely. I was listening to something else recently, probably last night or the night before. Um, and it was about the profound lesson of learning that like each individual is so much more than how they even define themselves and
Mm,
just contains so many more multitudes than any other individual can know about them and just
right.
kind of how tragic that is. But not to be a downer, but I love talking about stuff like that.
No, there was okay. I heard this thing, and I don't know if it's true. I don't even care if it's true. It's so powerful that I do not care if it's a real story. But there was this weird little folklore about someone found like an alien on the side of the road who was like horribly injured, and it was like a small town. He called like the local doctor, and the local doctor and his assistant tried to work on this alien to save its life. And the alien spoke to them telepathically and said, I weep for you, human beings, for you do not know what you are and what you could be. And I was like, I don't care if that story's like literally true. I know symbolically it is the truest statement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Like it hurt
oh
your
my God.
heart.
Yeah, we're so simple minded in our thinking. And I mean, why not? It's kind of constructed that way. We got bills to pay and bodies that need to eat and we need to sleep and we're lonely and trying to find love and we got, I don't know, mental health issues and life is hard and the future's scary and oh, we screwed up something 5 years ago and we
Yeah.
don't know what 5 years from now and we're eventually going to die and like, whoa, what does that mean? Like no wonder we're so tiny.
Yeah.
But oh my God, like within every human being is like there is something extraordinary that the only reason that they're not extraordinary is because they do not know about it. And like everything is relative, right? Like, oh, I'm average, but like, okay, is it the average lion not like just this incredible, like the average giraffe, the average elephant, the average whale is like, oh, it's average. I'm like, yo, like just the thing is extraordinary.
Yeah.
Doesn't even have to do anything, doesn't even have to try. It just is, right? And like human beings struggle with this just is thing. Like the best moments of your life are like sitting down at the dinner table with your family. And it's like something that everyone has access to, everyone can have. It's not reserved for some and not others. You don't have to earn it per se. And because it's so obvious, totally invisible. And that's like the story of a human being. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think going
Yeah.
through life with like retaining a sense of wonder is so difficult to do this day and age, but
Yeah.
it's the thing that kind of makes us us.
I think so. I mean, we got our unique passions in the art. And I mean, biblically, they're like, hey, if you want to get into heaven, you got to be a child again. And I feel like Carl Jung, that was very important to him is like understanding like part of getting old is also getting young again in your spirit, like
Pun
reconnecting.
intended.
Yeah, for real. Oh, Carl Jung. Young gets old. But like reconnecting with that childlike element, right? That's like, God, the world is infinite possibilities. And, like what adult is going to like pick up a leaf in the yard and stare at it and be like,
Yeah.
oh my, the intricacy.
I think he embraced that too, didn't he? Like toward the end, like he was
I think,
embracing that creative process.
oh, I think he had to lose his mind to find himself. There's this book, I've been meaning to read it called The Red Book. And it's like, almost like a psychedelic journey without psychedelics, or you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
all dreams, and it's like, but I feel like he needed to take that shamanistic inner journey and like walk through Hades to find paradise and then come back and give it to us kind of thing. But he had to lose his mind to find profound truth that he could share for generations.
Yeah, I wonder if that's true of like all great creators, whether it's art or writing or anything like that. Do you have to fall to like some kind of emotional depth or lose something or like,
Oh,
yeah,
I'll tell you a good one here. So many profound artists throughout history all had near death experiences or out of body experiences of some sort. So there
hmm.
was the show called the NA or OA. It was like the original Angel, and the weird like
That
this
was
doc.
so good.
Okay, I'm surprised they didn't bring it back, but okay, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Hemingway, out of body experiences. Dostoevsky, out of body experiences. Beethoven was like an epileptic. Like everywhere you look, even the guy who did Jeff Caviezel, who did Passion of the Christ, he died on an operating table and like watched himself for a few minutes. And then he goes into this role, and it's like there is something about like you touch this other realm or you disconnect from this one, and like you come back and like the whole premise of this OA show is like this doctor was trying to find the key to immortality, but he would look for extraordinary art that was like beyond what people in this world were capable of. Like a violin player that just has a thing that is so soulful and so real that he knows that this person has left here and come back. But there is a real, real thing in that historically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I go hard. You're bringing out the best in me here.
I love it.
Honestly, this is all I want to talk about, all I want to write about. We have less than 1 minute left. This was delightful. I got to bring you on the other show because that's all we do on the other show is talk about this kind of stuff.
Okay. So, I don't know about your other show. I'll look it up.
I'm trying to find the right people to interview. So it's kind of fallen off, but I want to bring it back. So Nico, we're about to get kicked out, but all of your links are going to be in the description. If you're an author, you're a good author, you need feedback, you need a person, you need a team. Nico is your gal. Let's put you in touch with her. So
thanks so much. Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. I can't wait to talk again.
Oh, me too. We'll definitely bring you back.
Okay, great.